Welcome back, Flare community. I hope you're all well and having an incredible day as always. And yes, it's time for another live stream. So in just a short moment, we're going to be listening into this. It's an X space that is hosted by Burst FTSO. And they obviously are a data provider or an infrastructure provider for both the Songbird and the Flare network. It's great to see them stepping up and hosting these spaces in addition to the weekly news roundups. They're actually going to be joined by Filip, who is the head of developer relations at Flare Networks, and he's going to be unpacking Flare's data layer, trusted execution environments, and cross-chain tools that empower builders. So I have a feeling that this may be quite technical, and if that's your bag or you just want to get an idea of how this all works, then this may be for you. Just looking here though, it looks like it may have potentially started. I'll just give this page a quick refresh, and here we go, 5 people in the space. We're going to listen in, and of course, if you do have any questions in the chat, I'll try and answer as much as I can, but I'm sure Filip will do a great job of discussing this live. So I imagine they're doing the introductions right now. It looks like we are 1 minute since it started. I'm going to tune in here and yeah, let's chat in the comments and enjoy.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really nice always to speak with the FTSO. It's kind of like you guys are spaced all over the globe, and it's really difficult to get you all in one place. And it's really important to kind of get a voice behind the username on Telegram saying, "Okay, I managed to get this working." So yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, the FTSO bunch is a fun, rowdy group on Telegram for sure. But yeah, always love just having these conversations with members of the Flare team. We talked with Quantic last week, and just love getting you guys to share your insight into what's going on within the ecosystem. Get your insights into some of the questions that we've seen from the community, but. Yeah, you guys have had a busy last couple of weeks with some really big developments and updates that we're going to talk through. But wanted to maybe have you start by giving us a little bit about your background and maybe how you got into crypto.
So I'm a mathematician. Started really doing mathematics, theoretical computer science, and then crypto was kind of like a natural thing to try. So for a while we've been trying to work something with Ethereum. That was like 2017, and then it died off. And then I know that when I was doing an internship at University of Edinburgh, I was there, and some people were working with Cardano Foundation at that point, and it seemed like an interesting thing. But I still thought that something is missing. All of the things that I've seen were pretty much built in isolation. So we have this amazing technology, we have this amazing consensus, we have this amazing way of transferring some tokens around, but at that point it really seemed that something crucial is missing. So me and a few of my colleagues went the normal programmer route, let's say, but then after a while we were contacted by Flare. Okay, we want you to help us build something, and at that point it was like, yeah, it seems that blockchain might now have a way to properly be useful, and has really solved this major problem, as in how do we get additional people on it, and how do we make it usable not only for people that want to just explore what's happening, but also for people that are trying to build stuff and have the necessary tools for it. So that's how it started. It was very fun and very interesting in the beginning, but then it fell down a bit, and now since I've been at Flare, it's mostly going up. It's just more and more stuff, more and more amazing things, and it's getting more and more useful on a day-to-day. It's gone, I don't know, at least in my opinion, it has gone from, oh, this is a nice thing to play around with, to, okay, this is a tool that has a very specific uses and can really be useful for solving some things, not just playing around and being nice.
Yeah, I agree. The blockchain has definitely started to come into its own in terms of the opportunity and capability of solving real world problems, having real world use cases, and there's so much opportunity, and that's part of the reason that I got involved in crypto personally, and then joined up with BurstNodes earlier this year. Just the amount of potential that the Flare network has, not only on the DeFi side but across the board, is just really incredible and really exciting. So, would love to hear more about like what is your role with Flare, kind of what you're doing day to day. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
So, head of DevRel, pretty much the major part of my responsibilities is making sure that all the products we have are relatively easily accessible to somebody who wants to work with them, to somebody who wants to use them to build something. So that means working a bit with product, making sure that the thing that we really built, the thing that is at the end available, has the right tooling around it, has the right configuration setting, is properly supported by the necessary documentation and examples when we push it out. So this was a big struggle in the beginning because we were really, really focused on building stuff. But now we've gotten to a place when we think about these things in parallel with building the product. So we have a product, so be it FDC, be it the version 2 of some data types, be it FTSO version 2, getting ready that once this thing is out, hopefully even once it's out on Coston or Coston 2, you have the necessary tooling so that everyone that wants to try it, everyone that wants to integrate it into something they know it's going to be useful for, can start immediately and not dabble within the code, not have to go through the necessary GitHub issues and see what's going on. So that's one thing, making sure that the products, as soon as we get them out, are useful from a developer perspective. Then there's, of course, the hackathons, the necessary events. So being able to present these, being able to showcase where to use it, always exploring what nitty-gritty things should be fixed, what, for example, should be added to the FDC so that we have access to additional data, not just to another blockchain, stuff like this. And then usually, since I'm still heavily involved with the technical team, usually there's a bunch of work that needs to be done in the security aspect. So you have a product, how do we properly educate people? What are the security assumptions? How do you make sure that, sure, we can get a price on FTSO, sure, we can get Bitcoin transaction data on FTC, but what assumptions need to be kept in mind? So I don't know, do I have to be fast with this? Is there a front-running problem and so on? And being this back and forth between some of the marketing, the developers, and also the product team, making sure that everybody knows that there are people who are thinking about other things, and also there are people that might be using this amazing thing in a totally different way because I just need this piece of information about the price, and sure, it makes a good random. Well, you have to be careful about these things. Those are pretty much my main roles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sure that keeps you busy, especially like you said, with all the products that you guys have been launching over the last couple of weeks and all the things that are still on the roadmap to come out. So yeah, I wanted to spend some time maybe exploring a couple of the bigger releases and why these releases matter from both the builder and the user perspective. So I wanted to start with USDT 0. So we at BurstNodes, we just flipped the switch today on launching the gas-free USDT 0 transfers on our website. And I know, Filip, you were helpful in getting that code up and running on our site. And so, it allows users to send USDT 0 directly from our site, no gas, no Flare needed. So it's pretty straightforward. So I wanted to get your perspective, like if there are other builders out there looking to integrate the gasless transfer, can you maybe talk through like the starting point, or maybe give us a preview of the workshop that you guys are planning on hosting next week?
Yeah, so well, congratulations on integrating it. That's nice to see people working on it. I hope it wasn't that difficult.
No, not too bad. Rob was focused on that, but I think he got it done pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's great. So yeah, this gasless thing. So yeah, firstly, USDT 0. It's a chain. You want to have chain that's active and alive, and doing this without liquidity is very, very difficult. So, and then there's always the consensus between, okay, are we going to go with something breached, something wrapped, or do we want to have something that's sufficiently native so that it's easy for people to on and off ramp through exchanges? And that's pretty much something that you really need. So all other let's say, half-baked solutions worked in the beginning, but to get a proper DeFi out with all the stuff that we're going to get in the next few months, you need a proper stablecoin. So I know that the lawyers are going to be a bit unhappy, but I'm from Europe, so it took me a while to get hold of some USDT Zero, but it wasn't that bad at the end. So it's very easy to interact, and it's reasonably easy to get on exchanges. So I'm not going to say which, because they're going to ban them at that point. But yeah, the gasless thing, I really wanted to push very hard on this, mostly because A, we're a new chain, and B, I think the abstractions that we're making for people are very, very important. What does that mean? Well, it means that if you want to have something on a chain that might work as a remittance, or something on chain that you want to use as a payment system, it's a big hurdle, me saying to my friend, okay, I'm going to pay you with USDT on chain, and then the next half a day is spent explaining, okay, this is how you set up a wallet, this is how you on-ramp some Flare to pay for gas fees. It's just mind-boggling how much work you need to do. But once you do it, it's very easy. So we wanted to have this nice user experience with being able to pay people or transact with people very easily with USDT without having to go through these initial hurdles. So if I want to get my mom to use blockchain, I'm pretty much going to lose a week of my time and a few months of my life explaining why do I need 2 tokens on a bank? It's a bit simpler and so on. So we really pushed hard on this, and I think that that's the next thing that blockchains should solve. So it's this abstraction problem and the problem of users not being able to do this in a really straightforward way. So that was one of the things that initially, after seeing USDT Zero, the implementation they had, the meta transactions they offer, we're just like, okay, that's something we have to go through. That's something we have to push, because it's going to be very important if you want to achieve a critical velocity, a critical amount of people using it. Otherwise, it's just too complicated. And yeah, the workshop given next week, it's pretty much going to focus on this. So this meta transaction, how can you easily integrate this into your front end, and how you can use either an existing backend, or how you can initially in this first stage connect to Flare's backend, where we make sure that we process this transaction for you. So this is still sponsored, but the gas is so cheap that when we were doing the initial calculations, it was like, I don't know, a few thousands of a dollar cent per 100 transactions, something like this. So it's a really minimal thing to do. But in the workshop, we'll also touch briefly on how you can create another intermediary contract, where you can easily take a small cut of this USDT that's getting transferred and use this to pay for the gas fees of the one in USDT that's actually doing the transaction sponsoring. So we want to make this model sustainable, and the workshop is also going to touch on this. So firstly, how do you create a meta transaction? How do you sign it? How do you present user with the necessary signing things? And then how you can make this viable? So those are the few things that we're going to focus on. And last but not least, one thing I really liked about this signature is the fact that it's immediately clear signing on most of the devices. So if you have a ledger connected to your MetaMask, if you have just MetaMask, if you have something else, this signature that you're processing off-chain, that you're not paying anything for it, is immediately clear on your device. It's not, okay, I'm signing this big hash, what am I doing now? It's very clear. I'm allowing this person to I'm allowing my address to transfer 10 USDT Zero in the next 5 minutes to this account. It's very clear what you're doing, and this is one of these main things. So usability and giving users this ability to know exactly what they're doing, and yeah, the tooling around it has to be proper. And one thing that we're going to be pushing heavily on is being able to use tokens like this. So either through meta transactions like USDT, or through Permit 2, when you can also sign off-chain, to be able to incorporate as many of those abstractions into the products that we're building itself, so that anything you want to do on-chain can be easily processed by somebody else. So make this user experience much, much nicer, much, much faster, much more efficient, and make onboarding new users simpler. So you want to interact with DeFi protocol, just permit this, and we're going to handle this for you. And you can pay us with the usual token, which is usually easier, but at the same time, makes it much, much nicer for you to interact.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you mentioned the part about the signature aspect, because I think, one of the things that, is an issue in crypto across the board is just not having like a common UX guideline. So, whether it's the signatures or the wording or the icons, and all the different protocols are using different standards for that, it can be difficult for users to recognize, what they're doing, what they're signing. So it's nice to know that that's one piece that's checked off that list. The other question I wanted to ask is, with the USDT, sending wallet to wallet, how far are we, or how easy will it be to implement that gasless transaction on more complex calls, like opening a loan or something along those lines?
So the token itself, through the meta transactions, supports so-called transfer with authorization, which is used by the gasless, but also the receive with authorization, which can be used by any protocol supporting this, just pulling in token from somebody else. That usually necessitates some work on the protocol side, but can be done. What the token also supports, but we opted not to go for this for the gasless transfers, are so-called permit 2 transactions, which are off-chain permits. When I just sign a normal transaction approval, but I do it off-chain. So instead of what you're used to doing in DeFi protocols, which is you have to approve a transaction to go through Uniswap pool, you have to approve a token spend and then initiate the transaction. You can also approve it by signing pretty much the same thing off-chain, and then the executor can bring this on-chain. So I think that most of the dApps would focus on this one. It gives you a bit less control than the gasless meta transactions, but it's much, much easier to implement because you don't have to change the code of your protocol in any way. And that makes it much easier to do it. And it's also much cheaper from a security standpoint. So you don't have to change anything. So I think, and I envision that most of the users and developer will opt out for this one. So we'll also have the necessary tutorials for that one. But for the transfer, this authorization was the simplest one because you can easily see everything. But yeah, I pretty much imagine that most of the things will focus on that one. Specifically, the newest version of some tokens that are coming soon will support permit 2 from the initial stages specifically for this, so they can easily be included in whatever you need.
Got it. Okay, so then if anyone else is interested on the building side, the workshop you guys are having is May 28th at 1 p.m. UTC time, and there's a link to register on the Flare Dev Hub X account. So if you go to @Flare Dev Hub, scroll down a couple posts, you will be able to see the register link and be able to check that out. So that sounds like there's going to be a lot of good information there for anyone else that wants to consider bringing the USDTO transfers onto their app. So with that said, maybe let's move on to the other big bust that arrived over the last couple of weeks with F Assets, the update to version 1.1. So I know when F Assets first launched, what was it, back in December, so almost 6 months ago now. So I know that when that first launched, the first FXRP minting maxed out almost overnight. The ceiling was hit, minting wasn't available a lot of the times, and so I know some of the big changes that came to version 1.1 helped open that up a little bit with the core vault being implemented. So can you talk a little bit more about that update and the big change to V1.1?
Yeah, so it's pretty much as you said. So after we opened F Assets version 1 with the XRP, it was minted immediately. And the main reason for this was, users want this, people want this, and the DeFi on Ripple is going to be huge. And to support this, we really had to slowly go away from this collateralization that was so high. So it was really unsustainable for the agents to keep this amount of collateral. But at the same point, we still wanted to have a fully secure version, a fully trustless and non-custodial version without any intermediaries. So the V1.1, which is an intermediary step allowing us to kick up this XRP finance, kick up all the necessary things that are coming after this, all the other buses, is the core vault, which allows us to take some underlying XRP from the agents, which can be considered as some sort of a hot wallet, and move it to a bit more secure location where we are not collateralizing it. So there's been a lot of security considerations about this. There's been a large amount of audits. We've internally gone through a lot of security things. We've made it as secure as possible to make sure that we can have this intermediate stepping stone that's going to allow a much higher influx of XRP on chain and allow us to pretty much do with it a proper DeFi ecosystem. So with so high collateralization, for example, staking is impossible. Lending and borrowing is impossible because you can't really allow a stationary FXRP. So you need it to move by quite a lot. And that's not really what's usually happening in the DeFi ecosystem. So sure, some things move, but a lot of FXRP has to be locked, for example, in pools. So to do this, to allow this, and at the same point, still keep agents profitable, and at the same point, keep them sustainable for a while, you have to allow them to offload this to somewhere else. And to be fair, after launching this, and it was a long way to do it with all the details around it and making sure everything works. It was quite a good thing. So I think we've minted a bit over 600,000 FXRP so far on Songbird, which is a huge amount. I know that when we were looking at how the agents are doing and how the offloading works, they were pretty much immediately calling the core vault and depositing there and making sure that things go back. So it was really a very good experience checking how things go and seeing that there is a necessity for this, and that going on Flare will be able to bring a lot of this on Flare, and also know that we will provide some usability to this. So the main reason for this is you have your XRP, you can't do anything with it, but we allow you to trustlessly bridge it to a smart chain where your options are pretty much unlimited. And that's where the other buses are now coming in.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, definitely a very successful V1.1 launch. Like you said, with that amount of FXRP minted within that span of a few days, showing that the system's working. One thing to note too is I saw Hugo tweeted this morning about the questions about raising the cap on Songbird, and he mentioned that the objective is obviously to get FXRP on mainnet as quickly as possible and launch XRP5 with everything else like you just said. That's coming along with the staking, swapping, lending, all that other stuff. So raising the cap wouldn't really help. So you guys are just focused on that mainnet launch then.
Yeah, it's mostly this. So raising the cap is, there's always a security you have to think about. And at least in my opinion, it's great that we have this. It's very important that we have this on Songbird when people can already develop with it, but they can see how this interacts with necessary pools, necessary dApps. But raising the cap is a really important security consideration, and that would entail a bit more work on the Songbird, much more monitoring and so on. So yeah, but the direction is clear. So we have this on Songbird. We have a huge amount on Songbird, don't get me wrong. And now it's time to start all the engines.
Yeah, no, that's great. One of the things I wanted to get your insight on revolves around running an agent. So obviously, some of the core functions that you talked about were pretty clear, but the benefits, obviously there's different incentives around that, which we can get into a little bit. But one of the core benefits is like owning this faucet of liquidity, right? So an F assets agent guarantees your users that you can always mint the wrapped asset without waiting for someone else to drop collateral in. And in V1.0, the original, like we talked about, you had to have this large kind of chunk of collateral, like 2 to 1 to get into it. The core vaults kind of changed that. But like from an operational standpoint, right? Like, waking up at 3 a.m. to top up collateral isn't going to happen anymore. But like, what are you doing to maybe in a pitch to builders looking to run an agent? What are you looking to kind of lay out the land for them and say, hey, this is what it's going to take?
So yeah, running an agent is an interesting enterprise. So I would maybe compare it to running an FTSO, the whole data provider setup. So the main thing is that things can go wrong pretty quickly. Of course, with the core vault, you can lower your collateral, increase your collateral ratio by quite a lot, making sure that you can sleep a bit better and you don't have to immediately top it up. But it's quite some work. So firstly, we provide, let's call it the basic implementation of agent bots, making sure that you're always checking the necessary thing, that minting is going on, you're processing the correct things through FDC, providing proofs and so on. But there's all these observations. So what's happening with my collateral? Am I correctly topping it up? At least for a while before going back and forth from the core vault, you need to make sure that you have enough collateral available. You can mint some more, because don't get me wrong, the only thing the agents are getting in this system is they're being paid from the fees. So the main thing as an agent, to make this a sustainable thing, you need to have enough traffic through you that the fees make it up for your capital that's locked. So you need to make sure that you're observing everything if you want to be fully optimized, like with the FTSO. If you run a default implementation, yeah, that one works well enough. But if you want to be good and if you want to make this a reasonable thing, you need to make sure, okay, people are wanting to go in. I should empty myself the core vault. I should make sure that I have a reasonably low collateral ratio, but also I should make sure that at a certain point I will again empty myself or increase my collateral so that I don't run into some problems with liquidation. Then there's all these operational details, which is, okay, so how do I make sure that the bots are functioning? What do I have to monitor? Do I have the necessary FDC endpoint? Do I have the DLA endpoint so that I can get the necessary data? How can I prove a payment? How do I make sure that after somebody hasn't paid me for a while, I correctly free my collateral? So observing that all these things work, that's a non-trivial amount. Sure, you get used to it, but there's some operations you have to do there. And then there's always being the policeman in the bunch, which is, will I run a challenger? Will I try to liquidate somebody else that's behaving badly? And stuff like this. So there's a bunch of these small tasks, but you need to make sure that everything is always up and running 24/7. If somebody requests a redemption from you at 3 a.m. and you're sleeping, you need to make sure that the bot is running. And it sounds simple. It's not that many things maybe, but it gets complicated if you need to make sure that this always runs, because the crypto is not sleeping. I mean, I still get annoyed by the bank saying, okay, it's Friday at 4 p.m. There's no way we can transfer this amount of money until Monday. But here, if somebody wants to mint FXRP at 3 p.m. or at 3 a.m., you have to be awake and fulfill that request. Otherwise, it's going out of your collateral.
Yeah, I was going to say that the 24/7 nature of crypto is a blessing and a curse, depending on your involvement. I can definitely attest to Rob working late hours on the FTSO side. So in terms of revenue streams, you talked about the fees. There's a collateral component too, right? In terms of like yield, like you can take the locked flare and that can still be delegated or staked. Is that right?
Yes, the locked flare in the pool still accrues the flat drops, right, which is very important thing. But you need to have the stables locked. Stables are not getting anything, so there's that's some sort of a sink.
Yep.
But mostly, you're getting redemption fees, you're getting fees for minting, some collateral reservation fee, and you have to keep in mind that some of this is also shared with the pool of people who delegate to you. So it's not everything is going to the agent.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, like there's definitely risks. The agent's shouldering like a price volatility, and then that operational load, depending on what your operation looks like, with some of that. But let's talk about like how this relates to F assets or other products. But I wanted to touch on how builders can future-proof what they're doing for the coming TEEs, because I know like on the F asset side of things right now, you've got these human run agents that are posting collateral, watching for those mint requests. manually co-signing those redemptions, but the trusted execution environments are going to change that. So maybe could you talk a little bit about what builders should be thinking about now in the way that they're building with that coming?
Yeah, so I'm not going to promise anything, but we're really going to try to make the builder experience and the final interface very similar also in the version with the trusted execution environment. So what we've tried to do even up until now is to pretty much abstract the builder's way of interacting with the F asset system into 3 components. One is minting, second one is redemption, and the third one is interacting with the F assets as a whole system, as a token mostly. And the important thing is that we expect most of the builders to interact with the F assets through the ERC20 token, with only this underlying implicit knowledge that there's a way to always go back to XRP without having much hassle and knowing that this can happen. And we'll keep that one as strict as possible without any changes. So for the builders trying to use FXRP on Flare, pretty much nothing changes, except that you can now expect minting to happen a bit faster and redemption to happen a bit faster. In that case, future proofing is pretty much knowing that FXRP is always going to be one-to-one tied with FXRP, and that's it. We'll keep this one the same because we want to have this abstraction. So we're providing you with a token, and there's a way to making sure that this token over a bridge between a smart and a non-smart chain works. And whatever we do with the bridge, we should at least make sure that your perception of this bridge and your assumptions about this bridge do not change. And this is the core assumption, one-to-one backing. So this is not going to change. We might add some additional nice things to the token itself. So like I said, on Songbird, we don't have this permit 2. On Flare, we're going to try and add some more additions, specifically add the permit 2, and maybe something more to enhance the usability, but we're not taking anything out. On the other hand, minting and redemptions, those will be touched by some developers, but not by all. So the DEX doesn't need to touch it. But if you have let's say an application when you can easily buy XRP with stablecoin, you can just have a simple dApp that swaps through the DEX backend and then immediately redeems. Again, here we're going to try to make the assumptions very similar and just take stuff that you have to do away. So with the protocol managed wallet, what we are really removing is this possibility of you not getting the XRP back and somebody having to punish the agent for not honoring the payment. With the protocol managed wallet, this shouldn't happen. So instead of now having 2 ways, and you have to plan for the 2 ways, either redemption happens, or in a really, really strange scenario, there's a redemption default and the agent is punished and the collateral goes away and you get paid in collateral plus tables. In the protocol managed wallet case, you'll only need to care about the first thing. Redemption happens. There might be a way there might be a requirement initially to prove by the agent that the redemption has happened, but after a while, we'll just be observing this. So future-proofing your application, make sure that you follow our publicly exposed interfaces. We're now much more clear on what is publicly exposed. We're documenting this on the Dev Hub. So these things and the invariants we're publishing around that, we're going to be very strict around them. And it's actually a really good a question and a thing I've just written down, and we'll make sure that we'll add some suggestions at the end. Okay, so this is required because of the agent. This is required because of the core vault. This is required due to the collateral, so that we can slowly start disambiguating which things are going to still be needed with the PMW and which things are slowly going to be unneeded. So the main thing of PMW is that it actually simplifies your interaction. So deposits are now much simpler. There's no locking of collateral for agent. There's no initial transaction on the Flare that you now have to create. It's just, here's a predefined hash that you need to use. You need to provide us with a final address that's going to receive the F assets. Boom, send us the XRP. And that's it. And you immediately get issued FXRP on Flare as soon as you can prove this through FDC. So we're just going to be taking these steps that are required to make this system work through collateral and removing them away to just keep just the bare minimum. So future proofing, make sure that you don't count on making a lot of money by thinking that the agents are going to work wrong. That's maybe a thing. But if you're going to be developing stuff with F assets, you should work with the tokens anyway.
Right. No, that's all great feedback. And I think, just keeping in mind, like you said, that each different type of app is going to require some different things to keep in mind, different design choices to make, whether you're working with the tokens or the agents or whatever that may be. So that's all good to see. And just for anyone listening, if you guys have any questions around either the USDTO piece of things or if assets, we might have time for a couple of questions at the end. So feel free to raise your hands or queue up request to speak, and we might be able to take a couple at the end here. So Filip, you're talking about the protocol managed wallets. If you're able to, can you give us a sense, like, is that the next bus that's coming in, or is there something else that you guys are focusing on? Is it getting FXRP onto Mainnet? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the protocol managed wallet is definitely one of the buses that are coming. I can't really disclose the full order of the buses, but yeah, definitely protocol managed wallet, FXRP on Mainnet. There are some upgrades to the FDC that are pretty much already published on the Dev Hub, and there are some additional new things that are coming that are gonna build on the existing stuff that we have. So it's now that I think the structure is pretty clear. So we have a proper stable coin, we have a really nice liquidity on the network, which brings much more applications to it because there's usage now, FXRP, and the next thing are just building on top of this.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's in line with, I know, what everyone's anticipating and what everyone's excited about. So maybe let's transition into more of like the community and the kind of like the side of your job that entails, like the hackathons, things like that. What do you guys have planned over the next few months in terms of like, other like micro projects or things that the DevRel team is looking to fund or get involved in, like more tutorials? Like, can you talk a little bit about what you got in store for that?
Yeah, so we'll be participating in Prague. So at the ETH Global Prague, that's going to be one of the big hackathons we're on. We're going to be, I think, at ETHCC also. That one was also very useful. And for sure, you'll be able to see us at DevCon. But that's a bit at the end of the year. The main focus of hackathons in the next half a year is pretty much focusing on the things that can supplement the stuff that we have on Flare. So we're focusing specifically on either existing FTSOs, so additional feeds, doing something with prices, but also mostly on the FDC and the ability to connect to Web2 data points. So the ability to not only gather data from external data sources like blockchains, but also to be able to query pretty much an arbitrary API endpoint, either closed or behind a paywall or behind an API key, and then use this on chain. And using this to supplement whatever you want. So that means that we've had a really nice Encode hackathon online in the past month, where we've had quite a few insurance applications, because since now you can observe what's happening somewhere else, that can be a weather data, that can be a plane related data, that can be what I think we had plane delays and planes not scheduled or canceled. And in that way, you could easily leverage the ability of blockchain to have nice liquidity, to have access to people who otherwise won't be able to pretty much not even get to your insurance product, and also the data with which you can back your final decision about the insurance. So the focus of the hackathons is going to be combining these small building blocks and building on top of them. So combining the FXRP as a token you can use and immediately either redeem for XRP or use it into DeFi combined with some staking, together with Web2 data you can use, and together with relaying this data to other chains. So FDC already connects to other EVM chains. Specifically, we currently have Ethereum. So you can combine data and user actions from Ethereum and even push data to those addresses on other chains, combine data from Web2 sources, and also be able to interact with the non-smart chain. So its focuses are going to be strictly on this. So being able to now bring more to blockchain and make blockchains non-isolated. This, and also a pet peeve said before, usability. So abstracting around this, making a nice wallet, making a nice way to make an existing product just a bit simpler to use, making a nice way to make an existing product just a bit less scary to use. So I don't know, the first time I was trying to use a Uniswap V2 fork, 5 years ago, I think, it was quite scary signing all of these things. So yeah, making a clear signing out of this, making a nice intent to bridge over a few things, even making a nice intent to bridge from Ethereum to Flare and immediately redeem through FXRP. Those are these things that you can't really plan for them, but once you see them, you say, okay, that was the thing that was missing.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, like you said, the ease of use, the ease of onboarding, and then the ability to, access data from all these different sources you're talking about, that just leads to an infinite number of possibilities from the builder and the user standpoint. So really exciting stuff that you're talking about and sharing. We did have a question from one of our listeners.
Something here.
Yeah.
Let me jump in. So we're now making sure that all these new additions, as soon as we have them on Coston or Coston 2, we add them to the Dev Hub. So you're more than welcome to check Dev Hub, and now the opening of the new Twitter account, we're going to be publishing all the updates about what's happening Flare's Dev Hub out. So if you follow it, we're going to be at the end of the firehouse pretty much spamming you with, okay, you've got this new example, you got this new connectivity. If you've seen custom feed, so there's a very there when you can combine it together with FTSO to get an additional feed that's very easily accessible. So a lot of stuff is now coming on DevHub, pretty much just being able to be used as a supplement to build. So here's the material, here's an example, here's a almost full-fledged application. Now it's time to surprise us and build something amazing that we haven't even thought of.
Yeah, that's great. No excuses now for anyone out there. Get to building, keep building, do what you guys are doing. All right, so I wanted to jump in. We did have one question from a listener, Baboon Docs. He wanted to know, can developers looking to build on Flare utilize Move language as well as EVM Solidity?
Unfortunately not. So Flare currently supports only EVM as a bytecode. I'm not sure, although I'm feeling bad now. Programming language was the topic of most of my studies. I'm pretty sure there are transpilers from Move to EVM, although they're usually, I would imagine that they're not that optimized. But for the time being, you can only use something that compiles to EVM, and 99% of what we've seen that has been Solidity. We are exploring options though, but these things really take time, because you need to take into the account the security considerations, the network, and so at least for a while, EVM, that's just how it is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. One other thing I wanted to ask, so in terms of the Flare DevRel team, doing a great job in building up the support for the builder community, is there anything that you'd like to see in terms of builders supporting each other, maybe cross-project collabs, incentivized collaborations, anything along those lines that you guys would like to see?
So I'm kind of always impressed when somebody has a trouble, specifically related to FTSO stuff, both on Telegram and on Discord, how you guys are able to help each other out. That's something that has always impressed me. Waking up early in the morning and seeing, oh, there's been 100 messages, but they were able to solve it. So that's one thing I would really commend. So thank you for helping each other out. From a builder perspective, we'll try to curate this community of people that are already building on Flare, so that they can speak to each other and easily integrate things that are yet to come out before they're really coming out. So that's one thing I would really like to see happen a bit more. I don't know. Let's say somebody's launching a new version of lending market, or somebody's launching a new token or a token platform, we do really plan to push this a bit more so that people are prepared before the things go out, that other builders are already prepared. It's like with F assets. So once they're out, we're speaking with all the necessary partners so that they can integrate them immediately, not like waiting, oh, there's something new, we have to work on this. In that manner, we'll try to revive the Discord for the builders a bit more, to make sure that there is regular activity there. Now the DevRel team has expanded. We have much more resources to be able to help there, but also to be able to point people to necessary projects that already exist to start working with them immediately. It's pretty much, we'll try to act as people, as a middleman, pointing to the necessary other people for conversations. But thankfully, at this point, it's not only us. So we have enough people building that it's not just, oh, I'm looking for a protocol that would allow me to do this. Usually somebody would know who's already working with this. So anybody can just point to that point. We'll work hard on this and would really appreciate the support, and people being able to point out, look, this is what I'm doing. Come and see.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know the FTSO community, and again, like other builders, just in my experience, it's been a really collaborative environment, like you said, and everyone helping each other. So yeah, we will continue to all do what we can to support everything you're working on, the DevRel team, and expanding the resources that we have available, and just helping out where we can. But yeah, I think we're close to wrapping up. So is there anything else that you wanted to share? Any thoughts before we close?
Amazing things are coming. I would really like to thank you folks, not just you specifically, but all the FTSOs for being able to do quite a lot of work in the last year. So if you would imagine a year ago, moving from version 1 of the FTSO to version 2, integrating the whole FDC in the middle. Now with this JQ type coming, there's going to be another need. With the PMW, there's going to be some additions to it. Moving to staking. So I think that in the last year, all the building blocks have started to really fall in place, and now the highway is ready. So what we're doing, we're setting up a bunch of stops along the way when people can build things, when people can build buildings, and when people can build bridges or portals that we haven't yet envisioned. So yeah, I mean, stay tuned for the most important things. Hugo is speaking on the Apex, I think in 3 weeks. Unveiling some important new stuff. Of course, the next step for F assets is pretty clear what's it going to be. We'll make sure that everything that is available on Mainnet and on Coston is always available and maintained on testnets. So if anybody wants to already try F assets, we're running the same thing on Coston. We're also deploying the same thing on Coston too in preparation for the Mainnet launch. So if you want to try it, all the necessary tutorials are already available. So I would really encourage you to play around with it to see how it can go, and get in touch if you want to build something very nice. We've also recently opened, though we haven't really published it that much, a so-called Speedy Grants program, which is specifically meant for small teams that we know from somewhere else, be it people we know from hackathons and have won there, or specifically open to data providers and FTSOs. So if you have a nice idea what to build, either something from usability, something with USDT, or something built on top of a platform, do contact me. And those grants are smaller in size and much easier to distribute, but are really important to get the community to work on these missing details that are really hard to fix. And yeah, stay tuned. More and more buses are coming. So I was told as a kid that more than 3 is a bit of a luxury in ex-socialist countries, but apparently once you go worldwide, you get a whole train of buses.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think, yeah, Hugo's analogy has been a lot of fun to play around with. I look forward to all those buses coming down. So yeah, if you're interested in the USDT zero transfer, first I'd say check out the integration we added on BurstNodes.com, and then if you're interested in learning more, make sure you register for that workshop on May 28th. And then definitely be sure to follow Filip, follow the Flare Dev Hub Twitter account, follow BurstNodes, and then all the other amazing builders in here. Filip, really appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us and giving us your insight and all the exciting news. And thanks to everyone for joining us today and for all of us riding those Flare buses together. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right.
Nice meeting you almost in person.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Well, guys, there we have it. I thought that was a great space, actually. We heard from Filip and talking about a lot of different things that are coming to the Flare network. I think he did have to refrain a little bit from trying to give any dates, but he seems pretty excited, as am I, and I hope that you guys are too. So that is pretty much the space. I thought it was a good space. Could definitely be worth following BurstNodes over on X. They did host it, and it could be something that they potentially host in the future again. Of course, I will be streaming these, of course, if it's not possible for anyone to get onto X, or maybe just want to have a recap of the news. But that is pretty much it, guys. Yeah, happy Wednesday. Do have yourself an incredible day. Stay tuned for the weekly news catch-up tomorrow. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, I'm out.
We have liftoff.